The year 2025 is coming to a close, ending another good year for the gacha game players. This year, there is a clear theme of the old and the new. Old gacha games are now finding their new home in the PC, and new gacha games are exiting the industry to challenge the monetization model. While there are a lot of organizations out there that give awards to declare the best gacha game of the year, they usually only see the entire game as one big monolith. The biggest consideration is usually just graphics and gameplay. So, I decided to make my own game award to celebrate gacha games that went above and beyond to tell a good story. There will be 8 nominations for 12 gacha games I've played this year. Of course, this list will be entirely subjective and only feature gacha games I've played this year. I will try my best to justify why I make each decision, but if you disagree with my pick, then let me know in the comment section down below and explain why your gacha game should have won the award. And if your gacha game is not in the list, do let me know. I'm always open to try out new gacha games, especially those who have good story writing. With that being said, let's begin with the first award. It is a common trend for gacha game stories to be sucked in the first few chapters, and then they get good in the later chapters. But there are exceptions to this rule. And this year, I will give the award to Girls Frontline 2. For a sequel in a franchise, this game's intro is very good for both veterans and new players who never played the first game. Old players will understand all the references, while the new players will appreciate the mystery about the world itself. Lore expositions are kept to the very minimum to not overwhelm the players, and instead the writers focus more on using show-don't-tell principles. Overall, this is a very good example on how to introduce your players into a very lore-heavy franchise. For more deep dive into this topic, check out the full video I did earlier this year. Now let's move on to combat. This is not something I talk a lot about in this channel because I usually talk about story writing aspect in gacha games. But when it comes to combat, historically, gacha games tend to rely less on player skills and more on things you grind for, like good gear substats and duplicate buffs on your characters. So it's very rare to have your characters die if you don't time your dodge properly. And the only gacha games that does that is Wuthering Waves. For the record, Wuthering Waves also won this category last year due to the hologram challenge. But this year, they upped the ante with the Phantom Pain. This is a super buff boss fight encounter. Just like the hologram challenge, the goal is just to survive and defeat the boss. But unlike last year, this time you have a real timer. After 3 minutes, your health will go down and the enemy gain an attack buff that stacks infinitely, meaning that you will be able to kill the boss slightly faster, but make just one mistake and you will fail the encounter. Sure, getting good gear and gacha weapons will help you in the earlier stages, but if you cannot dodge, you'll die very quickly, so you need to either go fast or get good in dodging. And I really like this. It's an optional challenge for the most dedicated players of the game and rewards mastery when most gacha games are so afraid in challenging their players. This is as close as we can get to a Souls-like in a gacha game. Well-deserved award. The use of lore and world building in gacha games is one issue I keep coming back to on this channel. Because in my experience, when writers focus too much on lore, they will ruin their good stories. Sometimes the writers just keep giving you lore expositions over and over again to the point where cool world building feels like an annoying noise. And because of that obsession with lore, their characters feel so shallow because they were never given time to grow. They're just there to sell a gacha banner and then disappear until their next rerun. But there is one gacha game that does the exact opposite. So this year, the award for the best world building presentation goes to Blue Archive. Blue Archive is the most extreme example of narrative minimalism. Kivotos is an incredibly alien world, but the game never tells you that. You have to figure it out yourself through implication, comedy, casual banter, and background details. This is an intentional choice. If the lore is not important, the game just won't tell you. But don't let that fool you. Because Blue Archive has an interesting lore, it just never lets that lore overshadow the characters. The lore can tell you that the students are immortal, but the story is always focused on their choices, their growth, and their relationships. Because at the end of the day, world building is just a backdrop. It's the human connections and character choices that makes any story memorable. If you want a deeper breakdown on this topic, I made a full video about it earlier this year. Music is one of the most subjective part of a gacha game because everyone has different preferences for different types of music. But what people often miss is that music has the power to tell a good story. So for this category, I'm not judging which game has the best sounding tracks or the most favorite music. I'm looking for a gacha game that uses music as a narrative device. So this year, the award for the best soundtrack goes to Heaven Burns Red. Heaven Burns Red presents a romanticized image of an innocent school life in contrast to the apocalyptic world outside. And the key to why this works is in the use of context. One of the most beautiful moments in this game is during the free time. When you walk through the academy during the golden hour, you can see every playable characters doing their own thing while a cheerful and innocent track playing in the background. This place feels safe, it feels warm, it feels like a bubble. Because that's exactly what it is. The music isn't telling us that the world is okay. It's telling us that this is a lie we choose to believe because we're not ready to face the truth yet. But the moment you leave the story and return to the main menu, you will hear an entirely different music. The music becomes quiet and melancholic. The same happy world is now framed like a memory. Seeing Ruka alone in this dreamlike space, it's like the game implies to us that something terrible has already happened without ever saying it out loud. In other words, Heaven Burns Red uses music to tell time, a contrast between innocence and regret. And if my interpretation is correct, then Heaven Burns Red's entire story is an allegory for growing up, for losing innocence and only realizing its value after it's already gone. The most painful thing about this soundtrack is that it sounds happiest when it's lying to you, and saddest when it finally tells the truth. When it comes to gacha game stories, I feel like most of them are written like an amusement park ride. You sit down, watch cool things happen, and then move on. Sure, they may look impressive, but once they're over, you don't really remember much. You only remember the twist, but not how you get there. But the winner of this year's Best Main Story chapter does the exact opposite. They ask you to engage with the story and participate in it. Of course, I'm talking about Blue Archive Eden Treaty Chapter 1. The setup for this story is very simple. Sensei is asked to tutor 4 students who failed their exams. But almost immediately, the story ramps up the stakes by adding political intrigue and betrayal. Because one of these students is a traitor to the academy, and the leader will not let any of them pass the exam if Sensei didn't find the traitor. That setup uniquely positions you as the player to think about what each character say in the story, why they say it, and what might happen next. The story quietly encourages you to form theories, make predictions, and question motivations. And that's the key difference. This chapter doesn't feel interactive because of branching choices or dialogue options. It feels interactive because your brain is doing the work. The writers respect the player's intelligence and use that to make you read to the end because you want to see if you're right. This is one of the most unique chapters I've ever played in a gacha game. I highly recommend you to play this chapter yourself or watch my breakdown video about this earlier this year. Character progression in gacha games is usually marked by a change in appearance, but I find it to be such a missed opportunity that the change doesn't come with the narrative development too. The ascended artwork is usually just makes the artwork look cooler, but doesn't reflect the result of the character's journey. So this year's winner for the best character design category goes to Reverse 99. Specifically, Nautica. This is the most jarring development I've ever seen in a gacha game. On her initial Live 2D artwork, Nautica appears like a regular Arctic explorer, nothing too special if you didn't read her story. Until suddenly, her Ascension artwork changed to this. She becomes a centaur-like being, and there are these weird shadow tentacles on her. What does she mean she kept her face and memories? I can't help but wonder what really happened to her. And that curiosity will lead you to learn more about her story. Her character design both acts as a hook for those who haven't read her story and a proof of her journey. And this is not the only time Reverse 99 does this. Samawise also has the same progression, albeit less extreme. In her original Live 2D, she is a newly converted vampire, still adapting to the hassle of the sun hurting her. Then, her ascended artwork reveals her hair has turned white as she embraces her new nature as a vampire. I feel like Reverse 99 is really underappreciated in the character design. Last year, I gave this game an honorary award for TTT as a ghost in TVs. And this year, they have a literal goo in an astronaut helmet. These whimsical designs are the kinds of creativity that would be impossible in 3D gacha games. And for that, I think this award is well deserved. The category for the best playable character story is the toughest one for me to pick simply because we have plenty of good candidates this year. Girls Frontline 2 gave us Aphelion and Mimis Brunner's Loop. Nikke gave us Unbreakable Sphere and Goddess Falls. Heaven Burns Red have plenty of fun hangout events and so much more. But if I have to pick one that impacts me the most, that has to be Blue Archive's I've Alive event. This is a deeply personal story about what it feels like to have an inferiority complex in a band. In fact, it feels so detailed and so realistic that I genuinely believe that the writers must be inspired from a personal experience. Unlike most Blue Archive story, this one is so grounded and very easy to get into even if you don't know anything about the lore. If you have a chance, please give it a read. And again, I just so happened to make a more detailed video exploring this story's theme in detail right here. The category for the best time-limited event is the toughest one for any gacha game to win because they need to have both good story and addictive minigame. So this year, that award can only go to Goddess of Victory, Nikke, specifically Terminus Ticket. Normally, I would be insane to give an award to an NPC story. Longtime viewers of this channel would know that I hate NPC stories in gacha games because they focus too much on a character that won't even appear again in the future. But this event brought me to tears. At first, it was just a story about a long overdue homecoming. In Nikke's world, for a century, humanity has been forced to live underground when alien robot monsters suddenly attack the surface. This is a lore information that any Nikke players know about the game since launch. But we rarely ever see what it does to the people who must abandon their home to seek shelter in the Ark. Those who have unresolved regrets, leaving their loved ones on the surface. Nora was one of those people. She waited for decades, waiting for a chance that finally came to her with the AZX crew. But secretly, even Nora knew that this journey might be her last, and her time is running out. The crew of AZX Train must work hard to fulfill her last wish as their one and only passenger in this journey. And when the time comes, they must learn how to say goodbye. This is just downright the best NPC story I've ever read in any gacha game. The execution is so painful, so human, and the Japanese voice actors absolutely deliver the raw emotion in this event. I highly recommend you to read it yourself. On the minigame side, it's just a simple minigame to form a sum of 10 in 2 minutes. But somehow, I just can't drop this game. I feel like I have to try this minigame every day to try and get higher and higher score. And somehow, I get pretty good at it. Maybe I'm just autistic to math games. Or maybe there is actually something here that makes this minigame addictive. I just don't understand it. So there it is, the winners of the Gacha Game Award for 2025. It's been a wonderful year and I cannot wait for the next 2 years where we will get the real next generation of gacha games that might not be a gacha game at all. Once again, please do let me know in the comment section down below if you have your own pick for each award category in this video. I would like to see what gacha games you've played this year and what gacha game you'd like to play next year. Leave a like and subscribe for more of my videos praising good gacha games. And with that, I'll see you guys later. Goodbye and Happy New Year!